Thank you, everyone, for joining us today and for listening to our highlight on the topic of success factors and support. I'm Becky Doyle, Global Vice President for SAP Product Support People. I take care of our HXM suite, including SuccessFactors solutions, payroll, analytics, learning, and a lot of the areas that we'll discuss today. I am so thrilled to be joined today by two fantastic industry and thought leaders in the HXM space. Jill Popelka, our fearless leader, lifelong learner, and president of SAP SuccessFactors, and SAP's Chief Marketing and Solutions Officer for HXM. And Danielle Larocca, Senior Vice President of Human Capital Management Technology at EPIU's, best-selling author, international speaker, and SAP Mentor and SuccessFactors confidant. Thank you, ladies, for joining me in the discussion today. In our discussion, we'll focus on SAP SuccessFactors, support, and the business transition that we've all been through over the course of the last year and a half. We'll touch on experience, transformation, and key elements to change on how clear communication is critical to our success. Now, Danielle, let's start with you on the topic of communication. You publish and share quite a bit of content, and what I've been most impressed about is that the content that you publish is sometimes on really complex and technical topics. You're able to break these down into really logical and clear messages for any level of user. Tell me, I think that's really powerful. Is it intentional?
Thanks, Becky. Thanks for noticing that. It is absolutely intentional, and I spend quite a bit of effort to make sure that I'm doing that. I remember when I started back in the 90s, there was not a lot of help text and resources available as there are now, and some of it was in German if you could find it. So I spent quite a bit of time writing materials in a language that I can understand and digest, and I wound up sharing it with my colleagues and my friends, and it turns out there is actually an audience of people who need that information in digestible chunks. Things in SAP can be quite complicated. So having the ability to take a complicated topic and break it down for the general person like myself, who may not be a technical expert, is something I strive to do. So thank you for noticing that.
Yes, and I have to say, I appreciate that so much in reading what you write. I think it's really relatable and digestible, which is powerful for all levels of users. So thank you so much. And you saw in the introduction, and for those of you listening, Danielle wears a lot of hats. You are very, very busy. So not only with your full-time job, SVP of Human Capital Management and Technology at EPIU's, you're serving as an SAP mentor, a SuccessFactors confidant, as I've mentioned before, which we appreciate so much. But you're also the voice of the expert in SAP's Insider Ask the Expert series for HR. You have such a wide range of responsibilities and interests. Can you tell us what attracted you to all of these different roles? And maybe just as important, how do you keep the balance wearing so many hats?
That's a good question. I've had the opportunity to work on a couple of different fronts. So I got to be a customer who had SAP put in when I was just a regular IT person. I've had the opportunity to be a consultant who put in the software, and to be an executive who got to evaluate the software and use that information to drive the business. For the past 10 years or so, I've been more focused on the software side, but having the opportunity to wear those different hats, as you say, has given me an appreciation for how the software needs to be designed to be consumed by a bunch of different types of audiences. So the employees expect one type of experience, the managers expect another type of experience, and executives require something else altogether. I think having the opportunity to see it from these different lenses has made me appreciate it more. Yes, I am busy. Yes, I have a full-time job and I like doing this other stuff on the side, but I can tell you that being part of the SAP Mentor program and the SuccessFactors Confidant program has really given me the opportunity to share feedback that I hear from our customers and the overall marketplace with SAP and SuccessFactors, which is valuable for both them and SAP.
Extremely valuable. So thank you so much again for that. We talked about experience, and you seem to have a really great balance of your own experiences. And we know that companies that really focus on the employee experience and the experience that their employees have at work win, and they win alongside their employees. So organizations that have employees that feel cared for and really empowered and feel that they have these opportunities really help provide measurable results from a business perspective and great employee satisfaction. So you've had a lot of experience, especially over the last year and a half. Can you tell me and our listeners a little bit about one or two high-level examples where you've seen customers really take action based on the employee feedback and making sure that their employee experience is set up for a win?
Great question. There's two I can think of off the top of my head. The first one is a company called McCain Foods. I think they're based in Canada. And during the lockdown, there were many different locations and states and regions and countries that had different requirements for who was allowed to be out and about during lockdowns. And McCain Foods had some essential workers, and the rules in some places were they needed to have some sort of employment verification letter that said that they were an essential worker, and they needed to be able to show that if they were stopped on the street or riding public transportation. And what McCain Foods did is they built a chatbot integrated with SuccessFactors Employee Central, giving the employees the opportunity to simply pull up their phone and display their letter that met all of the regulatory requirements for the area in which they live to show that they were able to be out and about. To me, that's a great example of leveraging technology, leveraging the information in the system, and making it a better experience for employees. There was so much going on during COVID. One less thing to worry about is being stopped on the street and asked where you're going, where you could just simply say, oh, I'm an essential worker. Here's the information that I have. So that was the first example I really liked with McCain Foods. Another one is we've got a couple of customers at EpiUse who were tracking the information that was coming through, whether it was OSHA or Johns Hopkins. You probably saw it on the news. They would put up those stats of which states were impacted, how many cases there were, and you could look at it by country, by state, by region, by zip code. And what these customers did is they downloaded that information. It's actually free from any of those sites. And they put that into SAP Analytics Cloud, and they merged that with their HR and payroll data. And it gave executives the opportunity to do some forecasting that says, you know what, Florida seems to be a hotspot. What percentage of our employees are in Florida? What percent are at-risk employees? And it helped them to drive those types of decisions to see the impact it might have on the business. Another customer used that same data to do leave liability analysis. So you know how everybody banks their vacation days, and when something like COVID hits, a lot of people cash in all their vacation days. And what would be the financial impact for the company for doing that? Using SAP Analytics Cloud and pulling the data in from Employee Central, these customers were able to use that information to drive those decisions. So it's been interesting that customers have been creative in these interesting times with all things with the pandemic. But those are some examples I could think of that really made a good impression on me in terms of improving the experience for the employer and the employee.
Yeah, really powerful examples. And I think if we really think about the customer impact of an employee traveling to work to do their job and the anxiousness perhaps of being stopped and not having the right information, I think that that's such a powerful example of how we're using data to really drive that employee experience. So thank you so much for sharing that with us.
You're welcome. I know that you did a session, I think it was at ASUG back in 2020, about the pandemic and business continuity planning. What has been your experience speaking with customers and peers, and how are customers adapting, and are they coming back stronger?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think, like all of us and our customers especially, I think we learned a lot over the course of the last year and a half. So doing that ASUG interview in April 2020, right from the pandemic hit, I feel like we've all learned so much from a business continuity perspective, but more from an employee and customer experience perspective. So if I think back to that interview, we talked mostly about the tactical. Could we transition from the in the office environment, support is such a collaborative business. How are we going to transition that, both from a technology and tools perspective, but from an interactive perspective? And I'm happy to say that we did that transition fairly well and quickly. It was almost a seamless transition, and many of our customers couldn't tell the difference between our support, and our customer satisfaction numbers continued to trend in the right direction. So we were doing something right from an ability to provide the same level of support, or in some cases, a better level of support. But what we found as the year continued to go on is that our employees were starting to get tired. And we saw this with a lot of our customers as well. Tired, burnout, not necessarily taking the time to focus on themselves or their mental health. We saw employees logged in at all hours of the day and night because your computer is right there in front of you. So we really had to take a step back and say, okay, from a business perspective, we know that we can be successful. Now we need to focus on the employees. So getting real-time feedback from the employees, really understanding why they weren't closing their laptop or what was the cause of a perceived stress, helped us to adjust from an employee perspective, making sure we were setting the right expectations with our employees so that they could set the right expectations with our customers, and really leading by example in that way. Making sure that we did things like focus on mental health. SAP had their first ever mental health day, making sure that employees had one day to remember to focus on themselves. But those little reminders come in day after day to get up. If you had lunch before at the office, make sure you're taking the time to have lunch at work as well. So that mindset shift, that cultural shift, we went through, but I know all of our customers went through as well. The other piece of it that I heard from the team members, and this came out in our pulse surveys as well, when we asked about experience, a lot of our employees thought kind of that the year stopped for their own personal development. And they were focused on work, but not much else. So with everything going on, they feel like their own career development, their own continuous learning kind of took a back seat. So it was really important in the back half of last year and into the front of this year that we made sure the employees knew the learning tools that they had available. And SAP did such a fantastic job opening our learning library so that other companies could take advantage of this as well. But our own employees making sure they had the time to focus on themselves and their continuous learning. We found that really impactful and something that I would say through the pandemic fell a little bit to the wayside for our team members. Hopefully we got them back on track, because we know that lifelong learning is something that is so critical to the success of our employees and ultimately our business. Jill, if I can switch it over to you on the topic of lifelong learning, you are, and you've come out in such a fantastic written way with your Wall Street Journal article. You are a lifelong learner. And you talked about in the article that you wrote around the need for businesses to continue to transform. They need to embrace that concept and that culture of lifelong learning. You highlighted the need to continuously consume information, new information, and embrace new ideas to understand the different perspectives of the audience that you serve. Can you tell us your views on learning as a strategic enabler to create a culture of resiliency and to drive business transformation forward?
Well, Becky, you know that this is a big passion area for me. And I think many of us have read or learned or heard that leaders, past, present, they've all been readers, right? I mean, we learned this in elementary school. Leaders are readers. You hear that Bill Gates, right, takes like a week, a year, and goes with a big stack of books out to a cabin, and all he does is read, right? And then he's constantly consuming information. We know that so many of our leaders throughout history have known that it's really important to keep up with the pace of change, right? They've known that the world evolves around them. And in order to continually know the context that you're working in, you have to listen, you have to read. Our employees know this too. And we've even heard recently that candidates for new positions, 60% of them, their most important criteria is that they have opportunities for learning and growth in the company that they're selecting. So it is proven that learning is really important, and people have all realized this. A culture of a growth mindset and lifelong learners, people that are curious, also benefits your business in significant ways. as your business needs to change to keep up with that constant change in the markets and in your industry, you know that you have to have people transformation first, right? People's mindsets have to shift in order to keep up with the new business model or the next big thing that you're doing. And so it's not only important for an individual, it's also important for the growth of a company. And so empowering our employees along this journey so that their individual career journey can also drive engagement and excitement around that learning journey is super important. It also produces business results. So yes, I believe lifelong learning, Becky, is super important, and it's important both as a corporation and as an individual.
Jill, I've got a question for you around business transformation. So customers are embracing the HXM digital transformation. They're moving from SAP to SuccessFactors and Employee Central. What are the critical aspects of this, in your opinion, in terms of ensuring customers have a good experience?
You know, experience is kind of the name of the game in our world right now. And a good user experience leaves a nice user impression. A bad one leaves a really, really impactful experience with that user. And so we want to make sure that all of the experiences that we provide in our solution are good ones. We want to make sure that we have continuous feedback loops so that we can get real-time feedback from people actually using the processes and the solutions that we have in place, and that we can continually update those to make them intuitive and continue to keep them easy and simple. I think it's also super important that we not overcomplicate things, right? I mean, so many of the things that we do, it's easy to complicate because we have so much data and so much detail. The hard job is keeping it simple so that people can move through their day quickly and easily and get on to the strategic elements of their job. So we've spent a lot of time in our products working on this and ensuring that our roadmap delivers on that simplicity, and that also we hold ourselves accountable to continuing that user experience that's really positive. It helps establish trust with our customers, because when they can implement our solution, when it's easier to use, then they build trust with employees, and that's extremely critical, obviously, to employee productivity. So we're really excited about continuing to listen to all of the employee experience feedback that we have and make sure that we show up well and solve for it if there's ever a problem.
Thanks, Jill. And Danielle, along those lines, really creating this real-time data. And when we talk about data accuracy and real-time data, you wrote a fantastic article, Make Your HR and Payroll Data Available Dynamically in SAP Analytics Cloud, which references your new ebook, 2021 HCM and Payroll Reporting Options for SAP and SuccessFactors. You reference the importance of making HR and payroll data available in real time. You gave a great example of McCain Foods, making that data available in real time already today. But can you talk about the impact when data is in silos? So not that great example that we saw where employees could get it in real time and not have that fear of being stopped without help. But when data is in silos, inaccurate, or all over the place, how does that lack of real-time data and information impact decision support?
I am absolutely passionate about data and accurate data. The only way to make informed decisions, whether it be should we open a new location, should we implement a mass update to give everybody a 3% raise, should we eliminate a position, all of those things, you need to have the right information to make those decisions. It's scary, and far too often where companies are making guesstimates or gut feelings or impressions when they're making decisions that impact the entire organization. In order to make a good decision, you need data that is real time, and you need to be able to parse that data to make the decision the way that you want to. So there are things that have to be considered, whether it's a field as simple as gender or where they fit from a diversity standpoint. There are all these different areas that were going to impact your decision making, and you need all of that at your fingertips in order to do that. Part of the challenge with reporting, as you mentioned before, with all the information in silos, is to get all that information in one place. SAP Analytics Cloud is part of that intelligent enterprise where it's grabbing all those different data sources and making them available for you to make those decisions. I think that if you could imagine employees, what they're demanding these days in terms of having access to information, we all have Google and Amazon, and we have this instant, back in my day, you used to have to go to the library to look something up, but now you just ask Google a question and you have instant gratification, you have an instant answer. They want that same experience with their HR data. How many days of vacation do I have left? They just want to pull it up on their phone. They have an expectation that everything is going to be just like that. And we have to deliver on that from a systems perspective. So having that information available and real time and accurate is key. But speaking of the internet, you and I were talking the other day about the ability for people to give instant feedback and criticize or review a product or a service. And that's going to have a crazy impact on support. I think the example I gave you is I was on a website buying a chair, and the first 3 reviews said that it was squeaky. And it is squeaky. And I should have listened to the review, but it actually does have an impact on the decisions that you're making. How do you run a support organization in this landscape where there's this immediate feedback and people providing you real-time feedback on what's going on from a support perspective?
Yeah, I think that's a really mindful shift that as a company we had to embrace head on, because it is urgent. And a lot of our customers' problems come very, very fast. And I mean problem in the academic sense, not always an incident, but a collective problem that we're working with them to solve. The urgency is always there behind it. We need to make sure that we are asking the right questions so that we truly understand the drivers and the impact that a problem has. It's no longer, wait and see, maybe it'll fix itself. It's we need to take that immediate action. If it is something that will take a bit of time, we need to make sure we're setting the right expectations with the customer, making sure they have a clear timeline and providing a workaround where possible. In the cloud world, functional business lapses in any case, if it's a minor thing or if it's a huge business impacting change, we need to make sure that we are acting with that sense of urgency, but that we're also providing those strong expectations to the customer. We know that when we talk about the experience, which is something we want to foster in such a positive way and support, a lot of times we're the first line of defense for our customers. And stress or a bad experience sometimes happens when your expectations don't meet the experience that you have. So from a support perspective, that shift of the urgent really translates into making sure that we are acting with the same level of urgency as our customers. We're understanding and truly working to get to the heart of what's causing that impact to their business and replying with that same urgency in timelines or positive workarounds. I think the other piece of it is just having that sense of urgency and setting a timeline is no longer enough. As we see that instant feedback coming in, 1 or 2 negative interactions can really break the experience and the trust that we have with our customers. So it's important that we not only address them quickly, but we need to make sure that we are testing, we are getting into the shoes of the customer and really understanding how they're utilizing our solutions so that we can help them even before they realize they might have a problem. The proactive support, making sure we have up-to-date content, making sure we have well-written content. Danielle, we know that's so critical to success, that our customers can consume in a positive way and take action on if needed. That shift has become something that is necessary for the support business to keep up with the customers and have that sense of continuous learning and strong empathy for the customer's business process. We hear a lot of times, and especially in the cloud world, we see customers utilizing solutions in different ways to solve their own business needs. From a SAP perspective and from a SuccessFactors perspective, we need to make sure that we understand and we're asking the right questions to provide solutions for their own business needs. It's a bit more personal than you would think in a cloud world where everything is on demand. So it's a really fantastic shift. And then the best part about it is that we allow our customers and we encourage our customers to give us feedback along the way and give us, whether it's a thumbs up, thumbs down, or a larger piece of feedback in an interaction survey, we're able to get that feedback, analyze it, and take meaningful actions, which is the really important part that we have to do in the follow-up. So from my perspective, it's a really fun time to be in support. I know a lot of times it seems a bit of a thankless job to be in, but we get to drive that experience and help our customers really to have the best experience they have with our solutions to meet their own business needs. So it's an exciting challenge that we have every day. I also think the world of perfect, making sure we have perfect processes, is something where we kind of have to throw that out of the window and really focus on, instead of having everything perfect, taking that real-time feedback and maybe instead of having that squeaky chair, making sure we have, the can of oil so that our customers know this chair is squeaky, but here you need to buy this as well, for an example. But in the SuccessFactors world, it translates into not being so rigid in our processes, but being nimble in order to meet the ongoing feedback and adjust where needed. So from that perspective, it's really fun, but it takes a lot of continuous learning. And we have a great onboarding and training program where we bring folks into the organization with that mindset of the continuous learning and improvement. So Danielle, I have to ask, with all of your accomplishments, 4 best-selling books on SAP, which is amazing, when you think about continuous learning and how you share your information forward with students, professionals around the globe, what advice would you give to recent graduates or say recent joiners to the SAP support team that are interested in HCM and related technologies in order for them to help their knowledge, of course, continuous learning, but maybe to help them secure the job of their dreams?
I get that question a lot. A lot of my girlfriends have the kids that are now just starting in the college age, and they're deciding on their career paths. And like most people, they want to get involved in technology, but specifically an industry or a landscape that's going to have legs and be around in the future, which of course are things like the cloud and the intelligent enterprise. I accidentally stumbled on this career path. I'm very happy that I did, but I know that it's usually pick 3 different careers when you're in college before you decide on the one that's actually going to stick. I'm glad I'm not a lifeguard, although that was my first plan of action. But for the younger generations, I think they're a little bit more mindful of what their plans are, and they have to be a bit more strategic, but they also have so much more information available to them to guide them with their decisions. One thing that helped me when I was up and coming in all things SAP was the Mentors program. So it's really a great example of that. And for those people who don't know, I didn't know what it was originally either. So I would go to all of these annual conferences, and there would be a bunch of people walking around with these shirts on that had the SAP logo, and then it would have like a huge number on it and their name on the back. And it looked like a soccer team. And I thought, SAP makes, a soccer team. But I started talking with one of them, a now retired mentor, alumni from the Mentor program, Martin Gillet. And he said, no, we are appointed by SAP and we're advocates for the SAP community. And we share information. And he kind of took me under his wing and showed me all the things that I needed to know. And he helped steer me in the right direction. And when I asked more about the program, he said it was not only to encourage his colleagues and others to be involved in the SAP field, but he was also sharing information with customers. Again, back to what we were saying with that first question, in a language they could understand. He was taking those technical concepts and saying, you know what this means? And this is what it means for you. Even more importantly, as a mentor, he was taking that information and feedback that he got from the customer and bringing it back to SAP. So if SAP is pushing out a message that says one thing and customers are receiving it in another way, he's sharing that feedback so SAP can adapt accordingly. This type of program is critical for college students starting out in terms of understanding where they should be focusing their energy, picking their career. The same advice goes from any one of my girlfriends who tells their children, just make good decisions. But there's a lot of information to help guide you to make those good decisions. And there are programs like the Mentor program that can provide information that will help you to say, you know what, I'm interested in HR and technology. Is there a role that fits that? And you can get that kind of guidance.
Excellent. Thanks, Danielle. And I think anyone that's been to a conference, and hopefully if things start to return to safe environments where we can get together again, our listeners may see the SAP mentors at the next SuccessFactors conference or SAP conference in the polos. Is it all right if they come up and say hi?
I was just gonna say that. That's why we're wearing the silly shirts. We are encouraging you to come up and interact with us. We have a lot to share, and we're interested in hearing your feedback. So next time you see somebody in a shirt that has a big number on it, and sometimes it has our Twitter handle on the back as well, please come up and interact. We are happy to work with you, and we are here to help.
Awesome. Thank you. And I have to say the true partnership that the Mentor program provides to us in SAP, across SAP, but especially in SuccessFactors, it is fantastic. We take that feedback and it really helps us, especially from a support perspective, to continue to get better. And we really aim to be as nimble as possible and shift as quickly as possible. So Danielle, thank you and the rest of the mentors for helping us on that journey and telling us where we can maybe improve in some of our areas or areas where we're doing really well. So thank you so much. And Jill, I know that you'll have something to say on the topic of mentors as well. So can you maybe close us off with some last words and parting words? And of course, Danielle, thank you again for being our Spotlight mentor for this session. So Jill, over to you.
Yes, thanks, Becky. And wow, what a great, the spirit of this conversation is so much fun. It's a great way to, hopefully for all of our listeners, either start or end your day or just a break in the middle. I've had so much fun listening to you both and also sharing a little bit, talking about learning, talking about experience, and then talking about paying it forward with mentorship is so important. And it's important to remind each and every one of us that we need to take the time to do that. My advice to all of our listeners would be, take the time to be a great mentor, right? Take the time to reach out to someone who may need it and lift them up. I think in today's hybrid world where some of us are at work, some of us are, in the office, some of us are at home, so many of our younger talent are at home and they're trying to build a network and they don't exactly know how. So let's make it a little bit easier for them. It may be uncomfortable. It may be scary. It may be a little bit weird to think that you're reaching out to someone and what value do you have? But I trust that that's when the real magic happens. That's when we're reaching out to help someone else. That's when the growth mindset will pay off. So thanks to everyone for listening today. It's been a great dialogue. Let's continue to challenge each other and to take care of each other because that's what we're going to need to do to continue to grow. Danielle, Becky, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care.